Hello, welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I am Big Italy 42 here with Scott Mailwig at Sports 25 to Life. We're giving you the breakdown of all the games tonight on DraftKings. We got an 8-game slate starting as usual at 7:05 p.m. So, you ready to get things going here, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we do have a couple weather concerns. Luckily, those are the first two games. Looks like around a 40% chance of rain for our first game here, which is Chicago Cubs at the Pittsburgh Pirates. And you got a nice pitching matchup here with Jake Arrieta on the bump. Obviously, he's one of the higher strikeout guys on the board, and not in a bad spot here tonight. But that weather is a little bit concerning also at the same time. So monitor that before you go ahead and lock him in. Obviously tonight, AJ Burnett, not really a guy that I'm targeting. How about you?
I don't mind Burnett's price on FanDuel. I feel like 7,000 is good, but DraftKings, he's a little bit too pricey for me, so I'm going to probably stay away from him a little bit there. If I'm going to pay up for one of these two guys, it's probably going to be Arrieta. But like you said, there's a little bit of a weather concern. It's not really a dream matchup, so I'm going to try and avoid it if I can. Arrieta's probably more of a GPP play for me today because of the weather.
Yeah, and he's a little bit of an underdog, which you don't like for the most expensive pitcher on the board, so... obviously, the win not quite as heavily weighted on DraftKings as FanDuel, but at the same time, you still would like to have that security if you're paying almost $10K. So, a little bit of a concern there. And as far as hitters go in this one, nobody I love. Obviously, some lot better situations we'll be getting into later. Anthony Rizzo, I do like. Obviously, AJ Burnett's got his issues with lefties. 350 WOBA allowed last year. Rizzo, big bat, but a pitcher's park, 7-run total. He's really the only guy that I'm trying to play here outside of GPPs. I like Rizzo quite a bit tonight.
Yeah, that's really the only guy I'm looking at, too. I mean, he seems like a great play again. I love where he's hitting in the order right now with the Cubs batting the pitcher 8th and him hitting 2nd. Getting a ton of at-bats because of that, and basically hitting like a third hitter after the first time through the order. So I really like basically everything about Rizzo tonight. I think he's a really strong play.
Yeah, completely agree. Anybody else you like in this game as far as hitters go?
Not a ton. I mean, I looked a little bit at a couple of these Pittsburgh lefties, but I just don't feel great about him against Arrieta. Now, if there's a rain delay in the 3rd inning and he comes out after that, then I'd feel pretty good about these guys because that means Edwin Jackson's in the game.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to count on that. So I think you can play a couple of these Pittsburgh guys, maybe like Josh Harrison or Gregory Polanco if you want for their prices. But, I mean, even those guys aren't really well priced, especially going against Arrieta, so I'm more than likely staying away.
Yeah, and it's the lowest total on the board, like we mentioned, so not a need to get too crazy with this one. But speaking of that, here is a high total on the board. Not quite the highest because there is a game in Coors Field, no surprise. So this one, Yankees at Detroit Tigers, 9-run total. Alfredo Simon, a -116 favorite over the artist formerly known as CC Sabathia, whatever he is nowadays. He's not the guy he used to be, and I absolutely love these Detroit bats tonight. I'm a huge fan of these guys. Obviously, everyone's going to be stacking the Rockies and the Padres as they do at Coors Field, and rightfully so. But I'm going to be having myself a ton of exposure to Detroit. And as I'm looking at these guys, there's no one that I don't like. I mean, you've got Rajai Davis, who should be leading off. He had better be leading off against the lefty. Got some speed, some power. JD Martinez, a ton of power against lefties. You got Victor Martinez, Cabrera. I mean, Cespedes hit 2 homers the other day. I mean, everyone for the Tigers in play for me here, especially the righties.
Yeah, I mean, they've been crushing lefties this year, and I mean, a couple of these guys had monster seasons. Victor Martinez had a ridiculous season against lefties last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't even very good against righties, and his ridiculous numbers against lefties made his full season numbers look pretty solid. And I feel great about him. Obviously, Cabrera is always a great play, especially against lefties. You mentioned JD Martinez. I like Kinsler. Rajai Davis is hitting leadoff, like you said. He's a great play. The other guy that's kind of interesting is Nick Castellanos. Is only 3,700 on DraftKings. I think he's a pretty decent play also. I mean, like you said, anybody in this lineup is a pretty good play today, especially in GPPs if you're not playing that Colorado-San Diego game a lot. And, I mean, I think Victor, Miguel, and probably – I mean, most of them are pretty good cash game plays too. So, I mean, you can go up and down the lineup here and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, and the prices aren't even that bad. I mean, obviously you got guys like Cabrera that are expensive, but Victor Martinez is the 15th most expensive guy that's eligible at first base. So a ridiculous price there. I mean, Rajai Davis at $4,000 is a guy I'll probably play a lot in cash games, assuming he's leading off because I don't need to tell you again about the big bats behind him. Solid matchup. He hits lefties. Sabathia struggled against righties last year and a little bit so far this season as well. So really all these Tigers in play, and I think you're of the same mindset here.
Yeah, in the same vein, I like some of these lefties on the Yankees too. Ellsbury, Gardner, Headley, all solid plays.
Yeah.
Their prices are a little bit higher, though, I assume because they're going against Alfredo Simon here. So I like them a decent amount. You got to pay up a little bit for them, which is kind of annoying because I think the Tigers are just better plays overall, and they're a little bit cheaper, so that's going to be tough. But as far as GPP plays go, I think these guys are going to be really low owned and are in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and Simon, a contact pitcher, as we know. So, yep. I mean, he's not going to overpower anybody. He strikes out very few batters. Well, at best, around league average. But, I mean, last year his numbers weren't even league average, 15.5% strikeout rate. So he throws the ball up there anticipating you're going to hit it, just hoping you don't hit it hard. So.
Yeah, I really love Gardner today. I mean, he had almost a 200 ISO against righties last year. And, I mean, his speed's there. I think he's stolen, 3 bases in the last 3 games or something like that. And I think he's a really strong play in this one.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. Moving on here to the next game, Cincinnati at Milwaukee. Nice hitter's park here. Willie Peralta against Anthony Discalfini. You've got Peralta's a little bit more expensive. I don't like targeting him. He's really bad against lefties, over a 360 WOBA allowed last year. Discalfini wasn't so great against lefties either, mostly out of the bullpen for the Marlins last year, now a starter. I don't mind targeting both these pitchers, honestly, in this hitter's park. I'm not going to go out of my way to stack a bunch, but I mean, there is an 8-run total here. Pretty close to a pick-em. Peralta, a small favorite here. And I mean, Discalfini's pitched well, and his struggle is with lefties, and it's a righty-dominant lineup. So I don't mind him in some tournaments at 6,200, but at the same time, those Reds bats haven't exactly been hot recently, so it makes you wonder how much run support they're really going to get.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not really excited about either of the pitchers here. A couple of the hitters I'm okay with. I like both Lind and Votto at first base, but first base is kind of stacked today. I mean, we've mentioned almost every first baseman that we've talked about so far. So it's a little tough there. Jay Bruce is kind of interesting in the outfield, but he's a little pricey on DraftKings. Billy Hamilton with the shortstop eligibility is okay. He just really needs to get on base to be able to give you really anything, and it's a struggle sometimes. So,
yeah.
Gerardo Parra is a guy that I think is a pretty decent value playing the outfield today for 3,300 though.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, there's not a ton of cheap guys that got a little bit of pop in that lineup, and like you said, neither one of these pitchers jumping off the page. Wouldn't be surprised to see some runs scored in this one. So I'm with you there. I'm a big fan of Votto, but 5,200. You got Cabrera, you got all these first base, and even more that we haven't even talked about yet. So nice GPP play, maybe a cash game play if you've got one cheap pitchers, but I mean, there's a lot of great spots for first baseman today.
Exactly.
All right, Cleveland at the Chicago White Sox is next, and an interesting matchup here between John Danks, the lefty, against the team that can't hit lefties, but Danks terrible against righties, and it's a lefty dominant lineup for the Indians for some reason still. And on the other side, you got Trevor Bauer, who's a small favorite here, and racking up strikeouts in bunches right now, but still very, very wild. I mean, he walked 4 batters last game. He walked 5 batters the game before. So he's got that great upside with the strikeouts, but he throws a lot of pitches, doesn't usually pitch deep into games. And pitching at U.S. Cellular today is not a great place to be for a fly ball pitcher like Bauer.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to make it rough today. I can't say I'm really excited about him with the wind blowing out to left today. I think it's up to 20 miles an hour right now. Last I looked, I mean, that's a really tough play today because he's not a guy that keeps the ball down really well. And there's going to be a couple of fly balls that go out today that probably wouldn't go out on some other days. So that's a really tough one. I do like his price a little bit, but it's just pretty risky for me. He has a little bit of GPP upside, so I mean, I guess you could look at him in that format, but I don't think I could touch him in cash games today.
No, I'm with you there. I can't touch him in cash games, especially, I mean, with those walks. Like you said, the wind blowing out. You walk a couple batters, get Jose Abreu up to that plate. I mean, that's your start's going downhill in a hurry. So
yeah, exactly.
Definitely not a cash game play for me. Too risky, but a lot of bats in play here, though. I mean, you've got Jose Abreu, of course, just mentioned him. He's in a great spot. And a lot of these Cleveland bats struggle against lefties, so it's tough. I mean, Brandon Moss got some great power and some good splits against lefties, but not off to a great start this season, so you could see him. I mean, but at the same time, though, I'm not going out of my way to target these Cleveland bats because it is a fine spot, but they do all struggle against lefties. So what's your take here?
Yeah, is Moss only first base eligible?
Outfield also at DraftKings.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely look at him. If he was at first base only, I mean, it'd be really tough.
Yeah.
But outfield eligibility, you can look at him a little bit. Danks has been terrible for like the last 2 years against all righties. Yep. He's been really good against lefties, though. Like you mentioned, I don't think you can play any of these Indians lefties today, since they struggle against lefties too. That's just some really bad split combinations right there for some of these guys. Carlos Santana is a guy I'm looking at a little bit. He has catcher eligibility on DraftKings, so he's a guy that I might have a decent amount of for only 4,600. I feel pretty good about him, but I believe he is going to have at least one lefty right in front of him today in the lineup. But we'll see what happens with the Indians lineup today. That might change things a little bit. They just don't have a lot of right-handed hitting options. They have a surprising amount of lefties in their lineup and on their roster, so makes it a little tough. You mentioned Abreu for the White Sox. I don't mind LaRoche or Eaton. LaRoche is obviously first baseman, so I'm probably just going to ignore him for the most part because if I'm going to pay $3,800, I'm probably just going to pay for Victor Martinez for a couple hundred more. I like Eaton again. He's looked a little bit better lately. $3,400 is a really nice price for a guy with some speed, power, upside. He's a guy that I'm going to be looking at quite a bit, especially in GPPs.
Yeah, I like that call. That's a great price. And one other guy around that price, not much power, but he's got decent splits against lefties. If he's in the lineup, Jerry Sands, they're back right around 6, so he's $3,400 as well. So if you're looking for a little bit of value, I don't mind going that way. All right, next up, Minnesota at Kansas City. Edison Volquez got himself a nice discount on DraftKings, $6,600 today, and he's been pitching well. He's one of the bigger favorites on the board today at -145, an 8-run total here. Minnesota not off to a good offensive start, actually one of the worst in the entire league right now. And Volquez, we know, implodes at times, but he's been effective so far this season. And at that price point, I mean, he makes for, in my mind, still one of the better plays on the board at DraftKings. And I'm probably going to be playing him more than any other pitcher. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, that price is just really, really low. It really doesn't even make that much sense why he's so low. So, I mean, he's going to be a really heavily owned guy. You're probably going to want him as your pitcher too in cash games. Yep. It's really hard to argue for anyone else like around that price because given the fact that he has blow up potential, I mean, all the other guys in that price range do too, and they're in worse situations. So, I mean, it's going to be really hard to get him out of my lineup for anyone else, honestly.
Yeah, completely agree. And even on the other side of it, I mean, these two guys faced off on the 15th. Volquez went 7 2/3, 7K, gave up 3 earned runs, and Kyle Gibson was actually pretty good. Went 6 2/3, only 1 earned run, only 3 strikeouts. He's not much of a strikeout guy at all, but great ground ball pitcher, 54% last year. And I mean, he's a guy that's he's not great, but he's not terrible against either hand. I mean, 291 WOBA allowed to righties is solid. I don't think I'm going out of my way to target any hitters in this one because I don't think that either pitcher's in a bad spot.
No, I don't either. The only hitter I'm really looking at is Moustakas.
Yeah.
He's up to 4,200, which I don't love, but he's been hitting pretty well. Still hitting second in the lineup. Gibson's not a guy that strikes a lot of people out. If Moustakas is making contact, he's usually making strong contact. So he's a guy I like a little bit at third base.
Yep. Only other guy I want to mention is Lorenzo Cain because he is on fire right now. Yep. Even though he got drilled in the ankle and that whole mess the other day. Check that out, by the way, if you haven't seen that. The Oakland and KC little battles they had going back and forth. Pretty Bush League stuff there. It was exciting. All right, next up, San Diego, Colorado. This is the one everyone's been waiting for. 100-run total. Okay, down actually to 9.5 now. Jorge De La Rosa, -125 favorite here over Odrisamer, Despain. And De La Rosa, one of those really strange pitchers who is really good at Coors Field, but not good anywhere else, but not a great real-life pitcher. I mean, he's the guy who is really bad against righties. I mean, his splits are pretty bad. 336 WOBA to righties, 241 to lefties last year, which was impressive. But a lot of right-handed bats in this San Diego lineup. I don't mind targeting any of them. You got Kemp. If Upton's back in the lineup, he's fine. Norris, take your pick. Obviously, Corey Dickerson against a righty at home. Yes, please. Give me some of him. I'll take some Carlos Gonzalez, some Troy Tulowitzki. Really anyone in a good spot in the lineup here is in play in this one.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, I even like Morneau's price, but he's a first baseman also, like we've talked about. It's pretty stacked there. Tulowitzki makes a great play at shortstop, obviously. There's not a lot of shortstops I like on this slate. Basically, all the outfielders for Colorado, Blackman, Dickerson, Gonzalez, all great plays. I like a lot of guys on San Diego also. I mean, Will Myers has looked pretty decent over the last couple games. Solarte is a guy I've been playing a decent amount with second base and third base eligibility, still only 3,400. Yeah, 3,400. I just found out that you say Jed's last name is Jerko. I didn't know that until like 2 days ago. I was watching the Cubs game the other day, and they kept saying that, and I was like, man, I would not have guessed that's how you say that. So that was a new one for me, but I think he's a pretty decent play at 3,900 today with second base, third base eligibility too. I mean, 9.5, 10 over under here. I mean, it's really hard to argue with any of the hitters that are hitting decently high in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of cash games we're going to see with Tigers, Yankees, Padres, and Rockies, and that's what a lot of mine are going to be up of as well. All right, 2 more games we have here. First one is Oakland at the Angels. Kendall Graveman off to a grave start, if you will, this year. Not well at all so far. I mean, he's keeping the ball on the ground, 56% ground ball rate in small amount of time, but not striking anyone out, walking more batters than he's striking out. Shoemaker, minus 145 favorite here. Shoemaker's one of those guys that I don't mind. I'll probably get a little bit of exposure to him in cash games just because there's really not that many other options. He's got a nice strikeout rate of 22.8%, just walked just over 4% of batters last year, and pretty tough on righties. I mean, a 271 WOBA, only 308 to lefties. So I think that Shoemaker is one of those guys, 8,100, that I don't mind getting in cash games, but I'm not going to have 100% exposure to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's definitely an option at pitcher. I don't love the high over-under here, but he's a nice favorite. Like you said, Graveman's not a guy that's been pitching really well, so you got to feel pretty good about getting the win there. There's not a whole lot of hitters I like in this game, though. I mean, I looked at Ike Davis a little bit. He's about the only guy in Oakland I'm really interested in, but he's a first baseman too. And, I mean, every first baseman on this slate is playable. Yeah. So it's really hard to even look that far down the list with the really top plays we have. As far as the Angels go, I mean, you can always look at Trout. I've been playing Pujols a decent amount, but he hasn't been very good. Joyce is okay against righties as an outfield option. Cole Calhoun as an outfield option is pretty interesting, but I mean, no one I really love.
Yeah, I mean, they're all pretty pricey. Hitter's ballpark, or pitcher's ballpark, I should say. And yeah, I'm with you there. And just a little note here is Ben Zobrist did leave yesterday's game. They say it was as a precaution, but just monitor that. Because
I know, that's why I didn't mention him. Yeah. I don't think he's going to play today. Otherwise, he would have been on my list like he always is.
I know. I knew something was up when you didn't say something about him, so I figured I'd have to throw that in for everyone, wondering what was wrong with you today, not talking about your boy. So if he's in the lineup, he's in a fine spot if you're not playing Shoemaker. But like you said, I mean, no one really jumps off the page here. A lot of other better scenarios for hitters today. Our last game we have up, biggest favorite on the board, but he hasn't looked particularly good this year. Sasha Iwakuma, minus 160 favorite, 7.5 run total at Safeco against Asher Wojciechowski, I'm going to say. That's my best effort. I haven't heard his name said, so if you know it better, come find me, teach me. But either way, the guy that I'm going to be picking on with some bats from the other side, and these Seattle guys at home against a righty, yes please. Nelson Cruz, just otherworldly right now. The guy's got 8 home runs already on the season, just producing at a ridiculous level. So you're obviously looking at him, Seager, Cano, all those guys in play tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Seattle's bats have looked pretty good. Cano hasn't really come around yet. Once he comes around, their lineup's looking a lot better than I thought it was going to turn out. Seth Smith's been a guy that's been pretty playable in cash games at least. He's only 4,000 on DraftKings for an outfielder. It's pretty crazy that Cruz is still at 4,900. I mean, I guess they're factoring in the ballpark in Seattle, but, I mean, he's just been ridiculously hot, and this is, as good a matchup as you can think of.
Yeah, absolutely. And despite the big total, Iwakuma, a guy that I'm not going out of my way to target, he's almost $9,000. You expect he's going to get some run support, yes, but he hasn't really pitched deep into games so far this year. I mean, he went 5 innings and 6 innings. Granted, some tough matchups against the Angels and Dodgers, but he just hasn't looked particularly great, hasn't shown much strikeout upside, so I don't know that I want to pay a premium for him tonight.
Yeah, like his last 15 or 20 starts, he hasn't looked very good is the problem. I mean, he was dominant in the first half of last season, and then he just couldn't get anything going the rest of the way, and he's looked more like that early in this season. I really want to play him today. I want to get it feels like a cheap win. Not really a cheap win, but an easy win. But like you said, the strikeouts haven't really been there. He's been giving up some like really hard hit balls. I mean, he's probably more of a GPP play for me. I think I like Schumacher more for a little bit less. But, I mean, we know he has upside. We just don't know when it's going to show up. I think this is a decent spot. I don't really love any of Houston's batters against him. I mean, I'll be looking at the same two guys I'm always looking at with them, Altuve and Valbuena, for the most part because of their prices, but I don't feel great about them. So I really want to like him a lot more than I do, but he hasn't shown enough, really.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So it's a tough situation, but I mean, if there's ever a situation where you can get things turned around, it's against these Houston bats that strike out a ton. They made a bunch of mediocre, I guess slightly above average pitchers in Cleveland all look like aces. So, yeah, I mean, maybe some confidence coming in tonight with Iwakuma if he can get it going against the Stros. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
That's going to wrap things up for us here with the DraftKings Daily Trot. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com. We'll see you guys again next time.